If it was addressed timely, adequately, perhaps the non-state actors like Mukti Bahani and people associated with it could have been brought to justice short of military action.
Yeah, our justice system is not up to the mark. We still have the old colonial system of the 1860. There were riots in United Kingdom. And we had the 9th of May incident in Pakistan. The person who went on the Capitol Hill, they are scotted free. They brought to justice. The state deliver, the judges deliver, the prosecution deliver.
Fair and trustworthy legal and judicial system is the first line of defense. Viewers, very warm welcome to another episode of V English program Perspectives, in which we discuss some of the most important and critical issues affecting international and regional security and politics. In today's episode, we'll try to decipher the National Action Plan of Pakistan and also try to learn what were the gaps which need to be filled now under the new plan of Azam-e-istehkam. So in order to understand that, today we are joined by a very leading and eminent legal expert of Pakistan who has closely worked on various aspects of law, particularly affecting statecraft, national security, and in various capacities over the last 25 years. He has served as the former chairman, Customs, Central Excise and Sales Tax Appellate Tribunal. He has served as former Justice of Peace, former Senior Advisor, Registrar and Grievance Commissioner for Overseas Pakistanis, Wafaqi Motasib, former Advisor, Federal Tax Ombudsman, former Chairman, District Public Safety and Police Complaints Commission, and also former Federal Counsel. So very warm welcome, Hafiz Ehsan Ahmed Khokhar Saab, for joining us today. So I want to begin by giving you an opportunity to share your perspective on why the desired objectives behind a very elaborate and comprehensive and inclusive process behind the first approach towards counterterrorism strategy did not deliver and achieve its desired objectives.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Ali. I'm glad to be here in your program, and you've always been very vocal on these issues and talked about the national securities, which is the main concern really for a strong state perspective in any part of the world, and especially with reference to Pakistan. If we look at for the last 20 years from 9/11 to onwards, there has been certain ongoing anti-terrorism activities, not only in Pakistan, but our surrounding countries as well, which definitely had an impact on Pakistan. And on the different side, Pakistani law enforcement agencies initiated different operations in Pakistan, like Sawat operation, then FATA, then in the other parts of the Pakistan. But ultimately, the state decided, in view of the Army Public School incident in 2014, we must go for a national action plan. And that was planned but decided by all the the stakeholders, the government agencies, the law enforcement agencies, the army. They were there. And they decided on the 24th of December 2014, and they decided the 20 points, and mainly the points in the three areas. One is purely the law side. The second is purely the working on the governance side, and the third is the pro-development approach, like the Balochistan and the FATA.
So if I were to briefly interrupt you to expand further on what are the main causes in your view behind the lack of success behind the National Action Plan so far?
Ali, there are so many reasons. The first is when I realize as a law student or as a law student on the governance side, the first failure was that there was no timeline on all these points. We had decided the 20 points, I'm giving the one example. The one example is that in view of the army public soul incident, there was earlier in the People's Party tenure, there was a moratorium on the death penalties and they were not executed. And we had decided that all the terrorists and whatsoever in the heinous offenses, they will be executed as per the law of the land. And the second was the establishment of the military courts. Though, in my view, there was no need to establish a new military courts in Pakistan because the military courts was already there because of the 1953 Military Act, and then there was Amendment 1967 and continued by recognized by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. But though the 21st Constitutional Amendment was made by the Parliament, and even the National Action Plan was approved by the Parliament, the process was taken against those terrorist people who captured by the law enforcement agencies, tried under the military laws, but all these sentences were set aside by the Peshawar High Court in the single stroke judgment that the due process of law was required for these sentences. A matter came before the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and still these appeals, about more than 250 appeals of these military courts process, they are pending in the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
So if I were to ask you, you have identified 4 key requirements for the desired achievement of results of National Action Plan. One is the kinetic side, the second is the governance side, the third is the administrative side, and the fourth is the judicial side. Which, in your view, is the weakest link in this 4-pronged strategy?
To both. One is the governance, because if you go on the operation side, then you replicate from the governance side, you need to have a good administration. The administration, which I must say that attracts all those areas which requires to be replicated by those law enforcement agencies' actions, which have not been taken over it. And the second is the law, the implementation of the criminal justice system. If we talk about the first point was, and the second point was about the military courts, about the moratorium, and then come on the overhauling of our criminal justice system in Pakistan.
So that means that if we were to distribute these 4 prongs between 3 key pillars of our state. One is the military, which is obviously involved in the intelligence and kinetic operations against terrorists. The second is the role of the civilian executive.
Civilian administration.
Absolutely. To,
backed by political leadership.
And backed by the political leadership. And the third prong is the legal prong, in which those who are found to be involved in anti-state activities need to be timely and transparently brought to justice. So between these 3, which do you think is the most critical prong and the missing prong from which we can build anew under the new Apex Committee decisions taken recently?
Ali, there is no doubt on it that our law enforcement agency, the army, they had done very well. But when you come to the other side, when these people brought for the justice, our justice system is not up to the mark. We still have the old colonial system of the 1860, the Pakistan Penal Code. We have the 1898, the Criminal Procedure Code in Pakistan. We have the 1984, the Qanun-e-Shahadat Order. We are living now in the 21st century, and we are in now 2024. But these laws are the outdated laws. Now we have to build the police structure, the police performance, the prosecution. Then we need to invest on the judicial side. We need to more judges, the trained judges who have the courage and who have the capacity to deal with these terrorism-like cases, like the heinous cases. Then we need to have the strong witness protection issue in Pakistan, because there are so many, people who are involved in these organizations like the terrorists, and nobody wants to come for the evidence. We need to have a strong witness protection election system. And finally, the time bound. I'm giving the one example. We have the anti-terrorism law, and the law says that whosoever is tried under the anti-terrorism law, he needs to be finalized his process of the trial in 30 days. Have you ever seen the 30 days process ever completed by these anti-terrorism courts in Pakistan? Not yet. And here the issue is the political indecisiveness, the ownership of the whole exercise. And the third is the most important is area, the coherence which should have been up to the mark, which should not be. There has always been the tie between the federal government and the provinces for the last 10 years. If the center doing another thing, province saying it is my responsibility, the law and order, though they are doing well on that side, but we need to have a coherent strategy between the federal government and the provincial departments. Then we need to have the other area which should have been at that time, that if we have a 20, the subjects of the National Action Plan, the first plan, it needs to be implemented in 30 days. 1 month, 6 months, 1 year. This is the second subject, like the controlling of the wave of extremism in Punjab, especially in South Sea. What we have done for that purpose is it should have been for the 2 years, the 3 years, there should be a minimum. Then there was the Balochistan issue, then the investment in the FATA area, then the Karachi area. So the first meeting after 2014 did place in 2019, and there was in the meeting, and there was statement at that time, the Interior Minister, that because of there is a lack of clarity of the time-bounded areas, so they were not implemented as yet. Then there was a meeting in the 2021 about the National Action Plan, why it is not being implemented. There is the same issue. And interestingly, I can give you an example. After the partition, the first commission was established in 1955-56 to probe what are the failures of the justice system in Pakistan, what are the causes, and how we can improve. They made certain recommendations for the overhauling of our criminal justice or regular justice system.
In the 1950s?
1950s, 55. Then again, the commission was
So what happened to that?
I'm just telling, I'm giving the example. Then 1969, another commission was constituted under the chair of Justice Hamood Rahman. And he's traveled from here and reached Pakistan, and there was a report for 2 years report, and they made certain recommendations. In both those reports, the idea was the justice system is not delivering. There is a delay in justice. We need to improve our criminal justice system. We need to improve our regular justice system. We need to improve our prosecution side. We need to improve on the forensic side. We need to curb the delay in the system.
I must interrupt you, because you raised a very important point, that when you are referring to a document as important as Hamood Rahman Commission report, and you are identifying the legal lacunas or weaknesses within the judicial system, which were exploited by non-state actors in East Pakistan, which led to the debacle of East Pakistan. So this implies that this legal lacuna and weakness tantamount to a grave national security challenge and a threat. Because if it was addressed timely, adequately, perhaps the non-state actors like Mukti Bahani and people associated with it could have been brought to justice short of military action. But if that was not done, it's about more than 50 years now. And still we are in the same stage.
Not the 50 years. We got the independence in 1947. We realized at that time in 1955, the system is not delivering. The justice system is not delivering. Then we realized in 1969, the system is not delivering. And still we are living in the 2024. And we are talking about the same things. If these things had to be addressed at that time in 1955 or the 1969, the situation of the state would have been a different.
So you mentioned the 1955 Commission report. You mentioned the Hamood Rahman Commission report.
1969. And it's a very good book for 2 years base.
Why such recommendations have not been implemented in 60, 70 years?
Ali,
What are the reasons?
When I realized from 1955 to onward, there is no doubt there has been the deteriorating in our state institutions. If you talk about the bureaucracy,
but is it a political will, lack of political will, or what is the reason?
There are two areas. One area is that whenever you made a recommendation through a commission or through a committee, it needs to be translated through a proper legislation. And the legislation has to be made by your parliament, the National Assembly or the Provincial Assembly. And the people who are sitting over there, this is not their priority. Their priority is only about their own constituency. Their priority is the DPO, the inspector, the patwari. And most importantly, in 1985, when we had the non-party elections, then there is another, the phenomena came, the development funds. So all these political leaders who are the members either of the province or the National Assembly, they are strict to these areas.
Okay, now
so the priority for the legislation purposes, the priority for the state trend to address these issues, this is the lacking. And that lacking makes a concept. I told in some program that now this is a soft state concept. When the people who are other side, when they think the police is not working, the state apparatus is not working, the institutions are not working, there is no concept, the immediate accountability of if I do make a wrong, then I should be in my mind that I should be punished within a prescribed time.
Sahab, you've again raised two very important points. You think our adversaries and non-state actors exploit our bad governance and lethargic approach towards judicial reforms. So basically you're saying that the bad governance is the cause which is being exploited by the non-state actors, and also the lack of political will towards timely and adequate and substantive judicial reforms? So can you specifically suggest a few timely and tangible steps that under the current environment, when we thankfully have an opportunity in which the civil and military leadership seem to be on the same page, insofar as the counter-terrorism operation is concerned, insofar as improving the governance is concerned, what are the few specific measures that you would advise Pakistan's leadership to consider in order to address these lacunas which our non-state actors and terrorists are exploiting, and also giving a misleading impression of Pakistan as a soft state?
There are two areas. One area is the justice system. In the justice system, we need to invest in the justice system, and we need to build a strong justice system.
What does that mean in specific terms?
Number one, we need to change our legislation. The outdated legislation, both on the criminal side and the civil side, they need to be changed.
But how will the human rights organization, international community
respond? There is no issue
at
all. There is no issue at all.
You don't expect any pressure on that?
If, for the sake of argument, if we got an independence in 1947, could you think that 1898, the Pakistan Criminal Procedure Code or the Civil Procedure Code made in 1908, it was for the people who were independent? These laws were made by the colonial system to suppress the people of these areas and to have a tactical delays in the system. And these tactical delays is being exploited now by all these persons. If you look at this, that if someone is doing crime in Pakistan, and he is not thinking that he is punished within 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. What is the rule of law index in Pakistan comparative to other countries? If for the sake of argument, we have the two incidents recently. One is the Capitol Hill. The people, in a mob went over there, and the second are the mobs, in the United Kingdom. There were riots in United Kingdom, and we had the 9th of May incident in Pakistan, and the people who are involved in the heinous crimes in Pakistan. If you compare on the side, was the person who went on the Capitol Hill, they are scotted free? No. They brought to justice. the state deliver, the judges deliver, the prosecution deliver, and ultimately the matter was settled as per law.
So you're saying human rights,
Yeah.
an international legal commitment,
Yeah.
and a state being signatory to UN Human Rights Charter does not constrain its sovereign
Not at
ability
all, not at
to
all.
protect its national security?
No, not at all. The internal issues, the human rights issues involve when there is a violation of the fundamental rights. If someone commits a crime, there is no issue of the fundamental right. There is an issue of your criminal justice system.
So, Hafizah, why do our judiciary take so long on these issues when which forces the military to demand the institution of military courts? Why our civilian courts cannot consider national security issues on priority basis as they do in case of so many other issues?
There are two areas. One area is that if we talk about these issues, the judiciary is one of the tools to implement the law. If you made a strong law, you made a certain areas you identify for the sake of argument that this is the process and its process has to be completed within a certain period. And this is the evidence process like the police, the prosecution, the evidence on the other side. So if we built on these sides and then ask the judiciary that you are not delivering. And the second important area is that there is a lack of communication. Why? Because we are now in a crisis situation. Why the judiciary, why the establishment, why the government, why they are not sitting on a one table? The Pakistan is mine. It is also from the judiciary has the same interest. The executive has the same. Why we are not sitting? Why we are not learning the failures of our past? Why we are not thinking on it that we need to build a new the governance system? Why we need to have the failures? Why we can move on these areas? And this is because of the Troika. And if the Troika sits over there, identify the areas, address over there, invest over there, and then you see there is.
But in the legal domain,
yeah,
are there any specific suggestions you have that can be practically,
yeah,
realistically, and timely considered in order to address these lacunas?
Mainly, we should change our procedural system.
Okay.
That procedural system makes so many things which causes the delay in Pakistan. The 1898, the law, we need to change the law. Then there is another law. We need to have when I talk about the criminal justice system or the accountability and the transparency, we need to learn the best practices outside the world. If for the sake of argument, Britannia has made, the UK has made the one agency, National Crime Agency, and they are dealing under one umbrella all the white-collar crimes. Why we are not making one agency in Pakistan? Why we have the FIA? Why we have the anti-corruption establishment? Why we have the other regulatory frameworks? We need to have one area. And like on the other side, the criminal justice system, why we are giving the most importance to a magistrate working in the United Kingdom or the USA? Why we are not giving the importance to our magistrate? Because our magistrate lacks all those facilities, all the strict laws, the regulations which they are coped by the having the UK magistrate or the magistrate of the United States. So we need to build a new system by considered the ground reality to move on Pakistan.
When you are comparing the British magistrate with the Pakistani magistrate, so the difference is in terms of resources, intellectual capacity, knowledge, or authority?
Legislation and political will. Because the political will makes the laws, and then the executive executes the laws, and the judiciary is going for the implementation of the law. So this is the three type of strategy. If we talk about, just we are asking about the why the judiciary is not delivering, but simultaneously we need to have the other areas as well. Why for the sake of argument, that if we talk about the 9th of May incidents, still the trial has not commenced. It is just that stage of somewhere in the submissions of Challan and the regular technicalities. It is a clear day incident. The forensic evidence was available over there. And if someone happening, I'm giving the examples earlier, that the Capitol Hill was there, the riots of UK was there. If they establish the evening courts, if those people who are, captured because of their presence and because of the forensic evidence, why it is not being done in Pakistan? This is the main cause, and that needs to be arrested above from everything,
but
from the political agenda.
I feel that when it comes to international law, when it comes to human rights, when we, if you allow me to use, the liberal perspective seems to heavily influence the legal profession in Pakistan. But when it comes to national security, when you look at it from the realist paradigm, the existential challenges that the state of Pakistan faces, the Pakistan's social contract faces, then it seems the priority of judiciary does not seem to be as forthcoming as some of the other issues. Why is this national security a less important priority for the judiciary?
I don't think so, but the real issue is why I am repeatedly saying on it that it is a joint effort. See, judiciary is not an independent from the executive in terms of relationship to move on the state objectives. And the second important thing is that if your system is not delivering, you need to change the system. If we change the system and we live and we decide what the ground reality is now at that time, number one. Number two, the state or the government on the other side is weak on the narrative side. See, we just, some human rights organization talk about the human rights violations and we follow them. And we are not going for the strict action. Firstly, all those best practices which are being adopted by all the Western countries for improving their criminal and regular justice system and for their national security matters, we should apply in our country and we should do for the betterment of the country. If after the 9/11, there was a legislation by the United States, see, why there was no human rights violation on that time? All the agencies had the power to pick up, investigate, and still they are doing on it. See, where is the human rights violations? Where is the human rights champion over there? State priority and national security is the paramount consideration of the every state. You can't compromise the national security measures. You can't compromise the national security challenges. And for national security challenge, you need to have a cohesive strategy by all the state operators which are responsible for the national security. And these operators are, number one, is the parliament is the responsible. The parliament has to take. Number two, the executive. Number three, the law enforcement agencies. And finally is the judiciary. And most importantly is now the media. We need to make such a narrative that such law, such system is required for our national security. And we are not doing any extra which are being done by the other countries. We are not doing such things which is not being adopted by the Western countries who seems to be the champion of the human rights, the organization, they based over there. So this is a two-pronged strategy. One strategy, we should admit what are our failures and how we rectify and how we move on in these areas. And the second is that we need to present our stance that it is not such like that it is the inhuman, that it is against the fundamental rights, that our courts are not delivering to rectify those areas. So if we come up with these solutions, that will be the better and that will be the key success for our national action plan. Otherwise, if we part-heartedly effort to make on these areas another 3, 4, 5 years, then we will say that we need to improve on these sides. If, like the other countries, if they had the plans of the 2014 National Action Plan and all the points which are mentioned over there, no one in Pakistan from any political party which deny that there needs to be addressed. Everyone is against the extremism. Everyone against the non-state actors. Everyone is against the extremist terrorist activities in Pakistan. Everyone is against we need to change our criminal justice. Everyone is saying that the social media or the media technology, they are harming the national interest of Pakistan, and we need to regulate like the other countries, like the Singapore is doing, like the European Union is doing, like the USA is doing, like the UK is doing. Why we don't change the defamation laws? Everyone comes on and he's blaming the state institutions, the individuals, and no one is there to catch on them. So these are the areas which thoroughly we need to have a surgery. These areas don't, in a way that half-hearted efforts cannot succeed. If we have a full effort by coordinating all, giving the ownership on that, invest on these areas through institution, you will see a change. And the first change is the optics change. When you give a message to the public that if someone in Pakistan violates the law will catch him. You will say that is a first beginning, and there is a reduction of your crime and the maintaining of the rule of law and the national security measures. They will be accepted by everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Coker, for a very candid, very informed and insightful analysis of the legal dimension of Pakistan's national security. If I were to summarize what we have discussed so far, I think in any country's national security, a fair and trustworthy legal and judicial system is the first line of defense against extremism, terrorism, and any non-state actor. For this line of defense to be credible and effective, according to Mr. Coker, the system needs a timely and comprehensive surgery or reform so that it can meet the challenges and the needs and expectations of 21st century, rather than relying on the relics of a colonial era which was not meant to serve the interests and the expectations of the Pakistani nation in the 21st century. Thank you for joining us. Keep watching Perspectives for such more insightful and interesting news and analysis. Thank you so much.